welcome to the fourth season of the Faith and Sustainability Podcast. This is where we look deeper into how our faith traditions inspire us to care for our common home. I'm your host, Leonard Robinson.
And I'm your co-host, Kat Doyle. This podcast is made possible from the generous support of Jamie Lanier, the Varlamov Family Foundation, Georgia Interfaith Power and Light, St. Francis Services, and Semco Atlanta. So, Leonard, at the beginning of the fourth season, we're going to open up with a bang. Who are we talking to today?
Today, Kat, we have Christian Brothers Investment Services. We've got Jeff McCroy, the CEO, and we have Thomas Dignan, the co-chief investment officer, and they're going to talk to us about investing, a Catholic responsible investing, and investment decisions and things like that. Really exciting stuff to start this fourth season out with a bang.
Welcome, Tom. Welcome, Jeff. Leonard, let's get started.
Couple of things. Who is Christian Brothers, and what does Christian Brothers do?
Well, what happened was in the early 80s, 1981, a couple of really iconic brothers that are part of De La Salle Christian Brothers started up two businesses. One was an insurance business, and the other was an investment business. And Christian Brothers Investment Services is the investment business. And really what the thought was at the time was that they were going to aggregate Catholic assets together and try to buy investment services from professional money managers in such a way that was cheaper if we all came together. And like everything in life, that was the original plan. And then they met some religious communities, predominantly some women's religious organizations, and they realized that their vision wasn't big enough. And the vision became, oh my gosh, we can use the Catholic assets to begin helping transform the world. And so over a series of years, they recognized that they could come together as a community and impact capital markets in a positive way. And the ethos of the company is really based on two things: education, because we have the ability to work with 850 different Catholic institutions around the world. And we see some really good practices, and we can share those practices with others. And then service. The CBIS is really very much set up as a gift to the Catholic Church from the Christian Brothers. And so what ultimately we work on is investing in a manner that is consistent with our faith.
Jeff, let me jump in real quick here and make sure that I understand. So do you actually interact with the Vatican, and are they driving and part of what you do day to day?
Well, we certainly have a relationship with the Vatican, but our responsibility is to serve the charisms of those 850 Catholic institutions. So we're very much focused on what those organizations' missions and supporting their mission. We had a iconic leader for a number of years, Brother Michael O'Hearn, and he would often say, no money, no mission. And so we recognize that these institutions are feeding the poor, they're educating the youth, they're healing the sick, and they need capital to do that. And our responsibility is to make sure that their capital is safe, and it also is expanded because their missions are expanding.
So I also want to jump in here and ask Tom a question, and that has to do with if this mission is to raise funds to do the work of the church, so no money, no mission, is there ever anything that maybe causes you to cringe a little in what would be considered a capitalistic endeavor?
No, not at all. The beauty of what we do and the way we execute on our process is that there's not a balancing act. We're not giving up performance to generate returns. We're building portfolios aligned with Catholic social teaching. We're engaging with companies. We're excluding companies that are not aligned with Catholic social teaching. And we're able to do that in a manner that does not compromise on return. And we do that by choosing managers, and we pre-screen these managers that basically have a strong track record that can generate performance, but we know that can generate performance within the guidelines we put on them. So it's very important that investors know that they don't have to compromise, that they can basically get the value-added portfolio, and there's no compromise on performance.
Okay, could one of you explain what Catholic responsible investing entails?
Sure. And I'm going to kind of explain it backwards. I'll start at the investing part. The investing part is we're just what we said. We want to deliver value-added portfolios to our clients. So that means the getting portfolios that beat or exceed their benchmark returns and do that at a reasonable level of risk. So that's what we're doing on the investment front. On the responsible, we want to do that in a manner consistent with what's best for our clients. So we do that. We're very sensitive to fees. We try to do it at a very reasonable price. We try to do it in a manner that we do things. How you do things matters as much as what you do. So we want our clients to be proud of us in the way we act in the marketplace. And then the Catholic is very important. I think for many Catholic investors, it started with exclusion in terms of we can't own these certain types of companies that are not aligned with Catholic social teaching. But what we've learned and the way we've kind of executed on it is probably the most important is engagement. So the companies that we're engaged with, we're trying for the client's money to be part of their mission, where we're trying to move, the world forward in terms of engaging with companies so that they're doing things in a better manner. And then there's also enhancement, and that's impact investing. That's where the way we do it is through a lot of impact bonds, but investing in areas where the business itself is making the world a better place, as opposed to engagement where we're trying to, with standard businesses, trying to make them improve upon the way they execute on their business.
The easiest way for me that I oftentimes help folks that are especially in pews understand this is the exclusion that Tom was talking about is like the 10 Commandments. Thou shalt not. And it really is a directive to avoid bad behavior. The engagement part is more like the Beatitudes. Blessed are. And so if you think about it in that terms, it oftentimes is easier to understand kind of the historical perspective that we are told to avoid certain things, and we're also encouraged to behave in a proper way. And so that's one way to think about the engage, enhance, and exclude.
Okay, so it isn't very often that you hear investment firms talking about the Beatitudes and the 10 Commandments and that sort of thing. So that's pretty cool. But let's talk about when we're doing all this. I know the bishops have a socially responsible investing guideline or set of guidelines. Can you talk a little bit about how those guidelines, how they work within the work you do?
First of all, that body of work in the U.S. Started in 1991. And CBIS has been working with the USCCB since 1991 as kind of the program manager, helping kind of play facilitator in that body of work. Of course, that body of work came out in the mid-90s and has since been updated twice. And actually, the conference is beginning to work on its third update here in short order. Tom and I are both involved in the upcoming renewal of it. It started from the perspective of the investment guidelines for the USCCB for their own assets. But they, over time, recognized that there was really a secondary benefit, which is to communicate as a conference to the U.S. Catholic investors what they see as an opportunity for discernment and thinking through what it means to invest in a manner consistent with our faith for individual institutions. Now, it's also important to recognize that there are 10 other conferences around the world that have also come out with guidelines. The USCCB was just earlier on than most of the other conferences. And of course, most recently, the Vatican has come out with Mensuram Bonum, which is the Vatican's first commentary on the similar matter of investing consistent with our faith.
And y'all were a part of that. I know you were at the Vatican, you were a part of those talks and all of that. How does CBIS and the U.S. bishops version align with the Vatican version?
We sometimes get the question, like, are you aligned with USCCB or are you aligned with Mensuram Bonum? We're aligned with both. The USCCB is aligned with Mensuram Bonum. Mensuram Bonum is about a journey. It's about trying to get to the right place. And different investors are at different steps along that path. There are different parts of the journey, but we're trying to get all of our investors as far along that path as possible. But our portfolios are aligned with both USCCB and Mensuram Bonum.
How do you balance ethical considerations with financial performance? How do you balance those?
Well, and I alluded to this earlier. It's many think it's a balancing act, but we've done the work, we've done the research, and we have the data that it's not a balancing act. We don't have to compromise on performance, and the reason for that. Initially, when you think of exclusions, investors think it's going to reduce my risk-adjusted return. But then if you go a step further and say, if you can build a portfolio and you're excluding a portion of the universe, but you can still get to the same place from a sector weighting perspective, from a factor weighting perspective. So basically, the forest looks the same, maybe some of the trees you've culled out, then you're not compromising on performance. And we haven't. You can see in our portfolios, both the index portfolios have performed right in line with the respective indices with our exclusions. And our active portfolios, the majority have beaten their benchmarks. So fortunately, we have not had to do that balancing act.
But it's based, candidly, it's based on 45 plus years of experience. I mean, in the sense of, we have evolved as an organization, Catholic investors have evolved. And, the one thing I would say about investing in a manner that's consistent with our faith is it takes resources. And that's why most secular firms choose not to invest fully in a way that engages, enhances, and excludes, because it does require a tremendous amount of resource.
Can you share a success story with us? You can leave the names out, but just an example of, with Catholic responsible investing.
I hope you don't mind, but I'm not going to leave the name out because I love the story and I tell it at almost every dinner party that I go to.
That's even better.
Especially if it's the Archdiocese of Atlanta, right?
Yeah.
Exactly. Well, you guys were certainly a part of this, as all of our investors are a part of it. So many years ago, we realized that Target was involved in human trafficking and was unaware of it. Now, Target's an incredibly moral company, so we knew that there was a disconnect there, and really what was taking place was they were monitoring they sell a lot of shrimp. It turns out people buy shrimp from Target.
Who knew?
And yeah, exactly. Exactly. And it turned out that they were monitoring their suppliers to 2 levels deep. But if you go one more level deep, you realize that those organizations were participating in human trafficking because they were bringing men on board. They were taking their passports and they were essentially indentured servants. We recognized this and we went to management and said, hey, we think you have a problem and we think you have a risk. Interestingly enough, at first they said, I think you guys are off base on this. Over time, they went, wow, I think you're right. And so the conversation and the collaborative part of this is really a key part of this story, because we weren't approaching management as though they were wrong. We were approaching them as though they didn't recognize the risk. And so over time, CBIS and management started working together with the Department of Labor to say, hey, there's an issue here that somebody needs to bring policy changes to Thailand and other parts of the Far East to make them recognize that their labor practices weren't current and that people were getting harmed through that. As a result, the local governments began to change their requirements for labor laws, and as a result, fewer people were being indentured servants. So what happened? There was a moral outcome that was positive, and management participated in that, and it all was started by a group of people that recognized that there was an opportunity for risk within a security. So that would have been, we would have lost capital if more people had learned about that, and an opportunity to really impact the world in a positive way. So I think of that as one of our great success stories. We have so many that you'd have to have dinner with me for an entire week for us to go through those stories.
Done.
So this makes me kind of, the wheels start turning here, and there's a lot of ethical and moral decisions and issues that come up. I want to know a little bit more about how you two came to be sitting in the chairs you're sitting in at Christian Brothers. What brought you here? Tell us your story.
So I guess my personal journey for Catholicism starts with food. And when I was a very young man, Wednesday morning mass at 6:30 consisted of My father is the cantor, and I love music. And of course, my brothers and I were altar servers. After Mass, we would go and get donuts, and then we'd go play golf. And so anytime you combine music and food and golf, I'm in. And over a period of time, I realized that there was a secondary message around the Eucharist, around the food. And so that was really important to me. But throughout my professional journey, it turned out I didn't know that I was more overtly Catholic than perhaps I was aware. But as the brothers were considering looking for someone to lead the organization as the first member of the laity, they went to search, and candidly, the CEO at the time, the search firm raised my name, and the woman that was the chair of the board at the time said, "Oh, that's Jeff McCroy." And the search firm said, "Well, how do you know that?" And she goes, "I worked with Jeff for 10 years." And so they sent me the dossier for this position, and I was reading it one evening, and I shared it with my wife, and Linda looked at me and said, "Jeff, I think I know what you're going to do. You're going to go lead this company in the future. And I know that you think that this is going to get you into heaven, but if you screw this up, you're going to hell." so there's no pressure there.
No pressure at all.
So it's been the greatest gift to be able to execute my faith and my profession in the same place.
I love it. So Tom, what's your story?
Well, this is ironic. Jeff's journey starts with food. Mine might end with food. I gave up snacks and desserts for Lent, and that chocolate donut part, I can't get off my mind now. I wish I had said that. So my journey really began, I was raised, Catholic education, in a very Catholic family. 3 of my aunts are nuns, and my faith is very important to me. But I, in all honesty, was probably a cafeteria Catholic. Went to church every Sunday, and that's what I did. I went to church every Sunday. And my life really changed a couple of years ago. We got a new pastor in our parish, and he's basically not just myself, but many in the parish. He's kind of re-engaged the relationship with Jesus Christ. And he has a group we formed. And it was like a once a week meeting, where we got together and we talked about our faith. And so I was becoming much more deeper in my faith. And I would say we were all early in the journey when I got a call from CBIS, and I met with Jeff, and I almost felt like this call, it came at the perfect time in my life. And I've been in the investment world for 30 plus years, and just the opportunity to do what we do and to invest, and for the clients that we invest for, and for the engagement and for what we deliver, and that we're actually part of delivering their charism to the world. And that opportunity was overwhelming. So I can thank Father Burke, but I also want to thank Jeff for reaching out. I'm still mad he brought up the donuts, but I will forgive him because I know that that's what we're supposed to do.
When I talked to Tom, I did tell him, I said, you will never go work at a firm that oftentimes when you leave a meeting, someone will hug you. And I said, you won't believe how fulfilling that is when you're walking out and you get that level of appreciation for what we're doing.
Well, Jeff and Tom, thank you so much for sharing that very compelling story. What do you think, Kat? I think we need to bring them on for another segment. There's just so much more we need to find out about Christian Brothers Investment Services. So, hey, you willing to come back on again?
Oh my God, we'd love that. We'd love that. We care deeply about our relationship with with you as an investor, and also the evangelization that you do. So that would be awesome.
Because this is faith and sustainability, and what a lot of people are wondering about is how are we as a diocese, how are Catholics supposed to invest when it comes to things like fossil fuels? So we're going to ask you guys some pretty tough questions next time around.
Tough but fair. But I think they're ready. Well, hey, thanks for coming on. We'll look forward to have you on segment 2. All right, to our audience, stay connected with us on social media and share your journey with the hashtag faith and sustainability.
And as always, don't forget to like and subscribe to the podcast so that you'll know when this second episode with Christian Brothers is coming up. We'll look forward to meeting you next time, Leonard.
At the intersection of faith and sustainability.
The preceding podcast is a production of the Roman Catholic Archdiocese of Atlanta. Copyright 2025.